Lastly, we're going to talk about retake expectations. So your student may only retake if they qualify for these seven guidelines. The first guideline is all their assignments for the standard needs to be completed and turned in by the initial summative assessment. So if they have the test tomorrow, they need to make sure that all of their homework is completed for that standard by the beginning of tomorrow's class period. If they have at least one missing assignment by the day of the test, then they are not allowed the opportunity to retake that test. So it's very important that you need to keep up with all of your assignments and make sure that all of them are completed and turned in by that initial summative assessment. Also, your student needs to try their best on their initial summative assessment. So if they turn in a blank test or part of their test blank, I may not give them the opportunity to retake because that shows me that they did not prepare well the first time. Now, if they turn in part of a test blank because it was a time issue, they ran out of time, and I saw that they were working on their test the entire time and trying their hardest, in that situation, I would allow them the opportunity to retake. However, if I see your student just not completing their test or not trying, then I will not allow them to retake because they didn't try on the first test. In addition to those two, your student needs to show no off-task behavior during class. If I catch your student playing games on their Chromebook while we are in class working on geometry, then that shows me that your student is not taking the class seriously, not taking the standard seriously, and they don't care about passing that standard. So your student needs to do what is expected of them during class time. And then if they meet those three and they happen to not do well on the test and they want to retake, they need to go to my Canvas site and either print off the retake practice for that standard or complete the retake practice on a separate sheet of paper for that standard. Now, the answer key is not going to be on Canvas because I do not want the students to just copy down the answers. So the answer key will be in class only, and answers must be checked by the student at least one day before the retake date. When your student checks their answers on the retake practice, they should be grading in a different colored pen, and they should try the problems again if they got any wrong. The retake practice is to help them practice for the next test, the retake. So it's very important that they actually try their best on the retake practice, so that way they learn how to do the problems, and they practice how to do the problems, so that way they can do better on the test. They also need to do reflective test corrections, which means that they need to correct their mistakes on their original summative, and they also need to reflect upon their mistakes. The form can either be printed from Canvas, or I do have extra copies of that form in class if they want to grab that. And then the requirements, the retake practice, and the reflective test corrections must be turned in by the date that the teacher sets. So if I say that it's due tomorrow, they need to have that due tomorrow in order to have the opportunity to retake. And then they must show up on the retake date when the teacher sets that date. So the teacher is going to pick a date, and your student needs to make sure that they show up on that date to do the retake. Now, when your student's retaking, your student does not need to retake all levels. So let's say that they didn't do well on levels 2 or 4, and they want to retake. They do not need to retake level 1 or 3 because they already passed those levels. They would just need to retake 2 or 4, And let's say that your student doesn't want to retake level 4 and they just want to retake level 2. That would be okay as well. And then if students are retaking multiple levels, they do need to be completed at one time. So if your student is retaking levels 2 and 4, that would be completed at the same exact time. So it won't be where your student can retake level 2 one day and then the next day they can retake level 4. That's not the case. They would need to retake level 2 and 4 at the exact same time that they are doing the retake. And if we do multiple standards on a test, if your student wants to retake multiple levels on both standards, then they need to do the retake for all levels, all the levels they want to retake on both of the standards at the same time. All right, but that would only qualify if I give them a test that has multiple standards on it. All right, so that is our retake policy.